The internet have decided in all their wisdom that we're definitely getting James Gunn's Superman trailer next week. Yay! Of course, we don't actually know if we're getting James Gunn's Superman trailer next week. I hope we do. I hope we can finally put to bed this trailer talk and actually see it. But one of the reasons I'm making this video today, if we do actually get this trailer next week, please be honest about your reactions, because this is the situation we're actually going to get. Snyder stands are going to say it sucks. Gunn stands are going to say it's the bestest ever. You know what I mean? There's no honesty out there. And you know, you huge content creators, successful content creators, the opposite to me that only gets a few views, right? You people, the reason you get subs is because people trust what you say. But even the few people who sub to me or follow me on Instagram or wherever, for some crazy reason, value my opinion. So it's very, very important that I'm honest about the trailer that I see. And we put the histrionics to one side. We put to one side the fact they treated Snyder and his cast and his crew disgustingly, you know, and the lies about Henry Cavill coming back. We've got to put all that to one side. You're either going to watch this trailer or you're not. You're either going to go and see this movie or you're not. You are well within your rights to boycott this movie. It's something, as a Superman fan and someone who's a creative person and loves stories and loves Superman especially, I can't boycott this film. It's something I could never do. They've got me. They've got me. I can't. There's nothing I can do about it. It's in my blood, right? So I will be doing a video where I react to this trailer. Whenever we get it, if it's next week, next year, in 20 years, whatever. I want to be honest about what I see. What I want to see is something that I love. And when I see the movie, I want to love the movie, despite me being a fan of Snyder, despite me being upset we never got a sequel to Superman Returns. You know, despite me being frustrated and angry that Gunn and Safran made sure Superman and Lois was cancelled. That's a fact. It was wrong. There's a lot of wrong things going on. In entertainment today, in scripted entertainment today, there's a lot of bad decisions being made. But it's clear, we all know this by this point, that DC Studios, James Gunn, Safran, Zaslav, WB Discovery are very desperate people that need Superman to succeed so they can kick on with this DCU. Because if it's not successful, as we've said many a time, you know, it doesn't matter how many projects they keep on announcing, it's pretty irrelevant. This movie has to be successful. It's as simple as that. What success means to them, I don't know. There's never been $1 billion global box office Superman movie. Of course, if you adjust for inflation, Superman 78 by now, you know, if it had the money of today, would have made over $1 billion. So Superman 78, if you adjust for inflation, which you always must do, is the most successful Superman adaptation of all time. Now, a lot of people won't actually realize this, but Smallville is the second most successful adaptation of all time. The physical media, it's shifted. The digital media, it's shifted. In fact, Smallville today is streamed by more people on rewatch than Superman and Lois had ever got any views, you know, today on first runs or rewatches. So Superman 78 and Smallville are the most successful Superman adaptations of all time. There is no question about that. There's not a debate. In my opinion, they are the best two adaptations. Because a lot of people won't realise this, But before Superman 78 was released, people weren't really loving Superman anymore. They loved him in 38 when, the first Action Comics #1 was released. They loved the radio serials. They loved the TV show with George Reeves. They loved, Superman was huge then. But as we went into, as we came out of the Second World War, 50s and 60s, he was still very, very popular. And then we came to the 70s with the Vietnam War and Nixon, and Superman was an agent of the status quo, and young people just didn't find him relatable. And Superman 78 changed that. That film made Superman the most popular character on the planet. And I think for about maybe 20 years or so, I think that remained a thing. Maybe less, by the way. Slowly but surely, people were preferring Batman to Superman because Batman's a human being. Batman, is a human being who can bleed. And I don't know why. He was a darker character. And people started, the generations going forward preferred the darkness of Batman to the lightness of Superman. But Superman 78 really made Superman popular again. And this is what James Gunn's movie must do. It does have that opportunity. As I said yesterday, nobody really knows what this movie is. So I do hope we get a trailer next week so we can finally see a little bit of what this movie is supposed to be. Because we need to. And I think one of the reasons it's, one of the least most anticipated movies of 2025 is, as I said yesterday, nobody really knows what this film's going to be. So according to all these fans and stans, we're getting the Superman trailer next week. And I really, really do hope that we do get it. But I'm begging everyone, be honest with what you see. That's the important thing here. Because as I said earlier, everyone's going to take their point of view and just be either horrible about it or over positive about it. Judge it on what you see. We continue to get lots of hints in Creature Commandos. It may be what we will see in James Gunn's Superman. Nicholas Hoult was being interviewed and he was teasing the character. But as Nick rightly said, I don't like talking about these things before they're released or so early. I'd like the audience just to, make their own minds about my character and the movie. And he's right about that. Because at this moment in time, and since this movie's been announced and shot, the only marketing they've really done is James Gunn talking on the internet. And it's not doing the trick with normies. It's not working with normies. It's working with his stans. It's working with some DC fans, but it's not working kind of all round. So they need normies to finally be interested in this movie. And the trailer is a key moment. And the studio and James Gunn absolutely understand that we need to see a trailer with a good length that celebrates who Superman is. And we'll see what we see. But honesty about what we see is so utterly important. So I have no idea if we're going to see this trailer next week, but I really do hope we finally do see this trailer. Also, we spoke about Mike Flanagan writing this Clayface movie. There's a new rumour now that James Gunn will direct a Mike Flanagan written Clayface movie. Now, it's not like James Gunn can't direct a Clayface movie, that he can't do, an adequate job of directing a Clayface movie, but there are other directors out there that could have done a better job. One name springs to mind. James Wan has a history of directing, creature effects. And I think he would have been a great choice. The problem is James Gunn and James Wan fell out during the production of James Wan's Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. And he left Warner Brothers Discovery. He will never work for Warner's again. I think he's at Universal now, the biggest studio in the world, and that's not even debatable. Sorry, Disney shills, sorry, WB shills, that's a fact. So James Wan would have been a great choice. But apparently James Gunn is going to direct Clayface. So that's interesting. But there's lots of rumours out there, like the fact that there may even be a Clayface and the Scarecrow in Matt Reeves' The Batman 2. You see, again, how can you have one over there and one over here? Again, this doesn't make sense, So these rumours are cropping up. I think Jeff Snyder, the scooper, is talking a lot about James Gunn's DCU. I don't know if his information is accurate. He used to be a very accurate scooper. I'm not so sure anymore. We'll see about that. So, of course, I would be interested in a Clayface movie. But as I said yesterday, apart from us DC fans, again, is this something that normies want to see? And at the end of the day, it is about box office. It's about who you're going to get to see this movie. I was thinking about the Flash movie earlier on this morning, and I was thinking the big mistake that they didn't get Grant Gustin to play the second variant Barry Allen. Instead of getting Ezra Miller to play two Barry Allens, which would have been really hard work for the production, and Ezra as well. I mean, they teased the team up in Crisis on Infinite Earths, on the Arrowverse, on the CW. They could have even have had Melissa Benoist as a variant Supergirl. And if Miller was such a problem, because Grant Gustin if Grant Gustin was on the production, you could have literally made Grant Gustin after Flashpoint, when Barry fixes everything, the main Flash. Something tells me that James Gunn isn't a big fan of Arrowverse and wouldn't have wanted that. But you've even got a ready-made Supergirl in Melissa Benoist. Again, I don't think he's a fan of Arrowverse. That would never have happened. But they were options there. So they've got a Supergirl. I'm happy with, who they've chosen as Supergirl. I think she's very comic book accurate, especially for the graphic novel they're going to adapt. I think that movie is going to be great. I genuinely think that movie could be really, really good, but we'll see. First of all, Superman has to be a successful film, and there's no question about that. But in terms of my opinion, whether or not we're going to get this Superman trailer next week, I don't know. That's where I am now. I simply have no idea. And that's the way Gunn wants it. He wants to tease things. He wants to keep things a little bit mysterious, keep the conversations going. So we will see next week. But I think it is very important that people are honest about this trailer because, one of the huge things when you release a trailer, of course, is the views. This trailer has to break trailer viewing records and things like that because it's Superman, because Gunn's made such a big deal of the DCU and that he's working on it. He's made such a big deal about this Superman movie. So it's important that that will show us, when we see the views to this trailer, that will show us how hotly anticipated this movie is. For example, Infinity War, Endgame, those trailers broke trailer viewing records. I think that Deadpool & Wolverine broke trailer viewing records. I think Spider-Man No Way Home broke trailer viewing records. That's how you know if a film's anticipated or not. And you can't rewrite the narrative on that. There are easy tells to know if the audience are interested in what's coming out. You want to live in a world, I want to live in a world as a Superman fan, where Superman is the number one character, and it simply isn't that way. We aren't in that position anymore. And I think it was different when Smallville was on the air. Superman was a very, very popular and relatable because Smallville made Superman relatable again. Just like Superman 78 made Superman relatable again. And as I said earlier, that's what Gunn has to do as well. He has to, something that Snyder said, he has to get Superman's house in order. But it depends. It depends, everyone, what position Superman is left in after his movie. Because, as I've said many times, if he gets killed off, it's game over for me. I'm out of the DCU. I'm not interested. That's it. I want my hero to be part of this DCU. And if he dies at the end of this film, if you think you can get him to go on a mission to outer space so you don't have to deal with him anymore, I'm not interested. But I suppose because he's making Superman his MGM lion on kind of the DC Studios logo, you would imagine that Superman would be front and center. Not necessarily, by the way. Not necessarily. I still have, my suspicions that he's going to kill Superman off in this Superman movie. Maybe that was going to happen, and maybe it won't happen anymore. Maybe Zaslav didn't want him to do that. Maybe he was going to do that. It's a huge issue. People made so much of a fuss when Snyder killed off Superman in Batman vs Superman, Dawn of Justice. So you can't suddenly say killing off Superman's fine just because you're a fan of James Gunn. That's not how it works. That's not cricket, as us Brits say. He cannot be allowed to kill off Superman, right? This has got to be the beginning. Now, Cornswep's age is interesting. He's 31. So, the length it takes to make Superman movies is kind of interesting because Cornswep is going to age out of this role very, very quickly. There's no question about that. So it could be that we don't get any more Superman movies after this one, that he turns up in other people's movies, that Gunn's already said that he's not interested in making a second movie of characters and a third movie and making, origin movies. So, a lot of characters won't actually get movies, that Superman may not actually get a sequel, that he'll just appear everywhere else. That's an interesting thing as well. Of course, this is Hollywood. By some miracle, if this Superman movie was to make $1 billion, then of course they'd make another one and another one and another one. It's all about money at the end of the day, but Gunn doesn't seem to want to make 5 Superman films or 5 Batman films. But of course, if they make money, then he'll have to. So it all depends on what this movie does as well. And everyone's out in the cold about this. Nobody really knows, what this film is, how well it can do. It is a kind of wait and see situation. For me, I can't have a take whether this film's going to be successful or not, because without me knowing what Gunn's done, it's hard for me to kind of evaluate whether this film is going to be successful or not. I think it's hard for anyone to evaluate if this movie is going to be successful or not without knowing what it is, and we just don't know. Now, is he right to keep this movie such a mystery? Is he right not to market the film already? I don't know. I don't think so. I think there should be posters everywhere, where there is now, but there should have been posters a year in advance, all over the world. The merch should be everywhere. And what happened to all this gaming, right? They promised us the DCU would be about movies, streaming, animation, and gaming. There should actually be a game attached to every movie. There should be, right? That's how you make money. But games take years and years to develop. But then you've got to do it. Then you can't have the movies out, in close conjunction to each other. And that's the problem. He teased games. Where are the games? Where are the DCU games? There's not one game in official development right now. There's not. People have been crying out for a Superman game for years. This Superman movie was a great opportunity to attach a Superman game to it. And they're not going to do that. Whether they, I think there's going to be a lot of problems with this gaming situation. They should never have told the public that the DCU would have gaming attached to it. They should never have done that. It's an ambitious thing to want to do, but wanting to do it and doing it are two different things. So I think, yeah, this was another mistake. You see, James Gunn doesn't think before he speaks. None of them do. As I say, it sounds very exciting. We're gonna have a DCU with movies, TV animation, and gaming. And gamers would have been excited. But where are the games? We've had lots of, Batman games. But people have been crying out for a Superman game, a good Superman game, for a long time. As I've already said, this movie would have been a great opportunity to give us what we've been crying out for years and years. But us DC and Superman fans can't get good things. And that's the problem with that. We want good things, but we don't get them. And as I say, we'll see what this movie actually is. Because right now, nobody knows. And we're all waiting with bated breath. I think it's the Superman fans who are crying out for this trailer. I don't think the normies are rattling James Gunn's door saying, where's this Superman trailer? But as I say, if it gets record views, then people are excited for this trailer. If it doesn't, then the 9th ranking out of 10 movies for next year's 2025 movies tells its own story. And as I say, to us Superman fans, we don't understand it. Why? Why is it only the 9th most anticipated movie, movies out of 10? Why? It's Superman. It's Superman. But Superman ain't that popular. He ain't. He ain't as popular as other characters. We live in a world where Deadpool is more popular than Superman. Because they created a great movie adaptation for him. They got Deadpool right. And really, since Superman 2, they haven't made a movie version of Superman that works for everyone. Superman 3 wasn't loved by everyone. Superman 4 was a disaster, of course, a financial flop. They took away the money, the budget, so, they couldn't make a great Superman 4 Quest for Peace. Superman Returns wasn't for everyone, didn't even make 400 million at the box office. Man of Steel divided audiences, a film I love, but it divided audiences. Same with Batman versus Superman. So this is the thing, and the more you don't give the public what they want in terms of adapting a character, the more the public lose interest in said character. But when you look, did I mention this yesterday? What's ironic is that Superman has Superman television adaptations have fared better than movie adaptations. 4 seasons of Superboy, 4 seasons of Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman, 10 seasons of Smallville, 4 seasons of Superman and Lois, and it should have been more. So Superman has actually fared better on television than movies in recent years. Maybe Superman is better off on television rather than on the movie screen because he hasn't got the interest levels to make, $1 billion movie. And maybe I'll be proved wrong with this Superman movie. I certainly hope that I am. But it is looking like Superman's better off on television than on the big screen. And maybe that's a thing, and that's an interesting thing to think about. And if this Superman film isn't successful, they're going to regret to their dying day that they cancelled Superman and Lois, a very, very successful adaptation for Superman. Whether you like it or not, it worked for the people it worked for. And they could have told a lot more Superman stories. Smallville, probably the most successful comic book TV show of all time, about a pre-Superman Clark Kent. So he's fared better on television than he has on the big screen. That's a fact. So maybe Superman isn't relatable enough for the big screen, but he has enough fans to make a good television adaptation on Superman be successful on the small screen. As I say, that's something to think about as well. We will see. I've spoken before, was it wise to have Superman be the launchpad movie for the DCU, considering that he isn't very relevant? You see, the thing is, as I say, they got Deadpool right. The reason the MCU was successful because their first movie, Iron Man, was brilliant. And it worked. They took a small character and they made him relatable and brilliant. So if Gunn has made a great Superman movie and made Superman relevant on the big screen, then, you can have a successful Superman, you can have a successful DCU. But as I've said before, because Superman is so famous and there's a lot of pressure on making a Superman film, they're probably better off doing something else for their first movie. And considering that Gunn came from the MCU, I'm surprised he didn't understand that lesson. But then he's not calling all the shots. I'm convinced that it was Zaslav who wanted Superman to be the launchpad movie for the DCU. But Zaslav has no scripted entertainment experience. He's thinking of Superman 78. He's thinking of nostalgia, but nostalgia can't win if you can't execute a great adaptation for said character. And here it is. And they have struggled to make a Superman adaptation on the big screen for everyone. So everyone can go and enjoy it and it can make, a lot of money. And that's the thing. Ryan Reynolds absolutely got Deadpool. Ryan Reynolds had the personality to play Deadpool in the right way. And, Marvel fans love it. And it works, right? But they haven't been able to find someone to say, right, this is Superman, this is the way we should do it. It doesn't matter what we think, it doesn't matter what we want to do, right? Because we're not writing fanfic. We're going to make a Superman that is right for today, for today's audience. And that's difficult. It's difficult to make a relatable character that, is pure-hearted, that's a good guy. You have to change a few things. You have to make him a little bit less stoic. You have to give him a bit more of a personality. I mean, the Reeves Superman did have a little bit of a personality. He would crack the odd joke. He had a personality, right? So he was stoic, he was upstanding, he was pure-hearted, but you were also interested in him because of Christopher Reeve. And that's what you've got to do. This is what happened with Tony Stark. They gave him a personality. Literally, Robert Downey Jr. put his own personality within that character, and that's why it was successful. And this is what you've got to do with Superman. You've got to change it a little bit for the modern day audience. People hate hearing, we're making a new interpretation for, modern audiences. And they never get that right, by the way, because they're not really looking to making something for a modern audience. It's about rewriting history and making something for their twisted ideology. But Superman has been needing tweaking for a very, very long time. And I think that's why his movies haven't been as successful and he hasn't been as relatable in movies as he has been in TV. Because as I've discussed on X a lot about Smallville, they took him out of the costume, they made him more Peter Parker, they gave him Norman and Harry Osborn through Lionel and Lex Luthor, his Mary Jane, Lana Lang. So he had ordinary human teenage boy problems, right? That's why Clark on Smallville became so relatable and we got to see this journey of a person, right? That's why it was interesting. So this is one of the things. By not giving Superman an origin in James Gunn's movie, he's on a journey. So it'll be interesting what kind of journey he makes and what kind of point in his development are we going to see him in. Apparently a year after he becomes Superman. Because it doesn't matter if you're telling Superman's story or a story of an ordinary bod, right? It's got to be a journey. You start in that place and you go on an interesting journey. And they're the films, they're the stories that become successful. The reason that Harry Potter movies and books were successful, we start off with a very shy, abused young boy who's forced to live under the stairs, in a cupboard under the stairs, and he goes on this big journey. He meets Ron, Hermione, he goes to Hogwarts, and he goes on this huge character journey. That's why Smallville worked, because it was a journey of a young man becoming a man. And this is what James Gunn has to do. In terms of Superman 78 works for so many different reasons. And there's even things in there that you kind of think, that probably wouldn't have worked today. And I don't think it did. I think it worked. What worked then, I don't necessarily think would work today. I think there's things in Superman 78 that certainly wouldn't work today. And I think that's the problem Bryan Singer had when he wanted to continue Superman 78 and Superman 2. He kind of was continuing it and also being modern. And he didn't really know, he couldn't make his mind up. Was Superman Returns a continuation or was it something new? And again, you look at James Gunn, he's giving us, I mentioned this before, Miss Testmarker and an Otis. That these were characters that were created for Superman 78. Did we really need an Otis and a Miss Testmarker? And what kind of characters are they going to be? Are they going to be comedy foils? I don't really know. So you can tell he's trying to do a bit of everything to please everyone. But that's a risky scenario to do. Now, Snyder, Goyer, Nolan decided we're just going to do our own thing. We're not going to be nostalgic. We're just going to do our own thing, right? And it worked for some people and it didn't work for others. But you've got to make something that people want to see. You've got to tell a character story. You've got to take the character on a journey to interest the audience.